All right, just messing around here a little bit. Let's give this a try. Um, so I've been using Kalima as a VM to sort of sandbox and run things. I'm actually quite enjoying it. It's good at what it does, and it's easy. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run uh, an entire rebuild. All right, and then I don't know if you can rebuild from here. Yeah, okay. Run. Sit. Sorry, Kalima start. Right. All right. Um. All right, and I don't remember if I put stacked rebuild new, but let's try it. There's a if you uh what is it? Start let's see. I always forget. I'm not in. Let's do rebuild. Yeah, looks right. Uh, oops. Yes. So it takes a couple minutes to reinitialize. I got a lot of work to do in terms of actually cleaning up all the modules and doing as many pre-builds as possible and stuff like that. It's kind of just stacked together right now. Once I broke it out into microservices, then there's some optimizations that I need to do. But it's not too bad. You'll see. Whee! So another nice thing about Kalima that I like um, is that you can set up several of them to run at one time, and you can dedicate different resources to them. Um, if anybody ever like, I've been testing different resource pools for different parts, different services, and things like that. And it works pretty well, especially because of the Docker network sort of laying over the Kalima network. Um, the network, sort of the point to point event mesh, whatever you want to call it, network that sort of underlies all of the service to service interactions. It's specifically sort of, you know, i- it's not even, there's no quality of service, there's nothing, but it doesn't really matter because you have multiple resources that are listening and are making sure that things get processed correctly, sent to logs, or executed against or whatever. Oh, all right. So super admin setup is required. This only happens on the first run. I'll just do. uh, So shout out to Billy Rios and Terry McCorkle for burning into my brain no default credentials at startup. Um, so you can't get past that. It won't actually start whether you're running in Docker or not. If you do have admin credentials um in the database already and you do a fresh run or a new, it will like completely overwrite it. So well, everything. I mean, it was obvious in its warning, so you kind of get that. So now you see a whole bunch of URLs for the different services are up. And I think behind you can kind of see things starting to. Let me put this back to the left side and let's see how. Okay, cool. So yeah, so you'll see all of these services load up and their default the root of the API actually serves um plain text. So like humans or other scripts or whatever can access it. So everything in here has got a lot of like schematization going on. Like you'll see in the the different directories, there's a lot of shared modules really to basically normalize the communication back and forth and to make in a lot of ways each of the services stand alone, but then also in a lot of ways they're peers and they can share workload and stuff like that, which again becomes much more important when you are running them sort of in parallel, horizontally scaled out or vertically scaled, and you want to be able to work share. There's some coordination that has to go on, and one of your nodes can be um, sort of well, it's the integrations node if you want it to connect to the outside world, or it's the network node if you want it to connect up to other sort of network clusters in Symbia. But it's again a pretty academic exercise right now, but it does scale horizontally and vertically and connect up, and it's pretty cool in the event mesh because it can't leave the actual pool wrapped around that network service, and then of course exposed out through the network port to other Symbia networks or through the integrations to like go out to other um services like you know um API servers. Like I think we have Open API and there we have MCP. I just built MCP in earlier this week. I haven't even tested it yet. But yeah, so like all these basically pretty much anything that you can communicate with through a browser or through a command line interface, you can interact with programmatically through Symbia and have either you through the APIs or the interfaces you build on top of it, or your agents or assistants can do exactly the same thing based on what their sort of authorization levels are. So there's also a admin interface. It's really basic, just created it. Usually 3000 is where it starts. Let me sign out. What did I do? I did Brian. All right. So you'll see I have two. There's the org I created, but then because I'm the first user in the database, I'm automatically assigned super user. Um, the reason that's important is because I mean the person who's installing the software somewhere or the script that's installing the software somewhere, um, is probably it needs to be the sort of super user of the install so that it can, it's got master access to all the APIs. If I switch over to my context of Symbia Labs, I can no longer work against any of these API. Like everything is org scoped, except for when I'm in Symbia system. And you can take a look, like identity is really where all the sort of magic happens with this authentication thing. If you ever need to sort of check who you are and what your sort of current perms are, you can just do so through the API or whatever, and you'll see that like this is me. I have two IDs, one of which is user one, which is the shorthand for the the sort of master user, and then of course my regular Symbia ones. And everything is like default no perm. So until we explicitly add entitlements and things like that to the organization and to the non super admin user, then the best, that's for the best. So like you'll be able to do whatever you need in terms of creating new users and all of that. Just it works. I've played with it. um what else? I mean, most of this stuff, until you really get into building applications with it, I don't think it'll be very helpful. I think the other thing is I don't want to build this out to the point that it was anything more than really like you know, a really easy interface. I think if you go back to these pages, like pick your favorite Claude or whatever, give it all of those, and it'll take a look at the integrations. It'll, quickly understand. It can either look at the Open API doc, which is also available. It's linked in here, or a much more detailed full API representation of it, or full text representation of the API in LLM's full. They'll all have that too. Um, and any of these agents are going to be able to use this, and they're going to know exactly what they need to do in terms of, authenticating, getting a token, building dashboards, doing all of that. And to be honest, like that's exactly how I built this. I just, had Claude go ahead and build it. And I'm not gonna lie, like building a front end helps you find a lot of bugs in the back end. So, this is really why it's at the point now where it's stable. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna I'll just create a release on GitHub, and I'll keep going from there. If anybody else wants to hop on and help out, I'd love it. So thanks so much.